Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining my talk today. I know it's late in the day. I know many times if I'm at a conference and there's going to be a party, I might like to go back to the hotel and take a nap before the party. So I really appreciate that you actually took the time to come and check out my talk. So as you probably saw, the subject, this time they will finally realize I'm a fraud. And I hope that this is a sentiment that many of you can relate to. I hope that this is something that you have felt in your life, and you are here then to see if you're the only one or to understand what you can do about it. It might also be that you have never felt this way, and you're wondering what this actual imposter is all about. So either way, I'm happy to have you here. First off, I'd like to say who I am. My name is Eugene. I am not a psychologist, first of all. So if you came here hoping to get some expert information directly from the horse's mouth, you're not going to get it. That is not me, but I do like to Google stuff. I do like to do research on subjects. So this is what I have found out about this particular subject. I know I look real young, but I have been in IT for over 17 years now. So I know, surprising. I too am surprised. But regardless, these are interesting bits about myself, but the real reason we're here today is because something else that I am is an imposter. And I'm an imposter who's just waiting to be inevitably caught. One day it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, but one day it's going to happen. So I'm just sitting here. I'm just waiting for it. I know it's coming. I don't know how it will happen. I don't know who will be the person to catch me, but I will be caught. But before I get too much into that, I'd like to talk about a few things to kind of build up the story. So first off, I'd like to talk about a book. It's not the Bible, in case you were wondering. This book is called The Grapes of Wrath. Have you heard of this book or read this book? Show of hands. Okay, I'd say about half the audience. So this book was published in 1939, and it is considered one of the great American novels, right? If you think great American novels, you might think of books such as Moby Dick, To Kill a Mockingbird, Huckleberry Finn, those kind of books. Those are considered the great American novels, right? This is another one of them. This one is actually studied in school. Many people in high school, middle school or high school, they'll read this book. They'll have to do essays about it and so on. And this book won the National Book Award and the Pulitzer Prize when it came out. This book was and continues to be a big deal. By any measure, this book was a large success. This is the author. This is John Steinbeck. Good-looking fella, as you can see in his picture there. Very classy looking. John was awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature because of his work on this book and also on other different books that he wrote. But John himself was also considered, and it is considered, a very prominent, successful author. But what's interesting about when he was writing this book, The Grapes of Wrath, he actually was writing two books in parallel. I don't know if this is something you might have heard before or not, but while he was writing the one, he was also writing another. This other book is called Working Days, The Journals of the Grapes of Wrath. So what he was doing is, on the one hand, he was writing his novel. On the other hand, he was keeping a diary or a living record of the journey for creating this book, this masterpiece. He said that he was going to write in this book every single day because his purpose was to document how it was writing this kind of book. And of course, when he was writing the novel, he didn't know that it was going to be a successful novel, right? But he just wanted to document how the process went. And reading this book, this second one, this Working Days, it's kind of interesting because a lot of the stuff that he writes there is surprisingly relatable. For example, look at this. He wrote in that book, I am so lazy, and the thing ahead is so very difficult. Have you ever felt this way? Yeah? Hands? Yeah, definitely. Problems pile up so that this book moves like a tide-pool snail with a shell and barnacles on his back. Now, you can say whatever you want about John. He was good at writing. Like, look at this sentence, so beautiful. But still, right? Like, he's saying it's just problems. Like, he's writing this book, and it's just problems. He's just feeling bad about the whole thing, right? I only hope it is some good. I have very grave doubts sometimes. He was not feeling great about writing this novel. Look at this one. My many weaknesses are beginning to show their heads. I simply must get this thing out of my system. I am not a writer. I've been fooling myself and other people. I wish I were. This success will ruin me, as sure as hell. It probably won't last. This is relatable. I also am not a writer. I actually am not a writer. He was a writer, but he didn't believe that he was a writer, and he was sure that he had been fooling himself and other people. So surprisingly relatable for someone who actually had won a Nobel Prize. Who here has won a Nobel Prize? No, and I'm just doing this. I haven't either, right? But still, for someone who you would think was so successful, still very relatable feelings, right? So we got John on the one hand, feeling this way. And to John, I would like to say, welcome to the world of imposter syndrome. There's many of us. We have cookies, so come sit down, John. Let's talk about two psychologists. These two psychologists are doctors Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. Now, these two psychologists, when they were in university, they noticed that they were struggling with certain feelings of self-doubt, and eventually they got to talking to each other, and they realized that a lot of these feelings were the same that they were both feeling. For example, they would take tests, and they would ace these tests, they would do great, but the whole time until the moment when they got the score or the grade, they were sure that they were going to fail. Like they were surprised that they had actually passed these tests, but they were acing them, right? When they were accepted into university, both of them had this feeling. Separately, they didn't know about each other at that time. They both felt that a mistake had been made. They were sure that like something has gone wrong, someone messed up, and that's why I got this acceptance letter into university. Is this sound cutting in and out, or is it just me hearing it this way? Okay, it's just me hearing it. Okay. One of them won class president at one point when she was in school. Didn't understand why. She didn't know why anyone would vote for her. So both of them had these feelings. And like I said, they got together and they started discussing this. They started comparing notes around the early 70s. And they realized that this was something that was common to the both of them and to many other people. So they published a paper called The Imposter Phenomenon in High-Achieving Women, Dynamics and Therapeutic Intervention in the year of 1978. Now, two things here. First off, they called it phenomenon because it's not a syndrome. A syndrome is when you are sick, right? It's a disease. This is a phenomenon. However, syndrome is the word that has caught on now, so that's what we usually call it. Also, you will see the word imposter spelled differently throughout the presentation, sometimes with an E, sometimes with an O. They're both acceptable. I prefer O, but if I'm quoting it, I will quote it with an E. This is my internal imposter syndrome telling me, like, make sure they know you're not an idiot and know how to write. But yeah, when they wrote this paper, and in this paper, what they did is they went and interviewed 150 high-achieving women. And by high-achieving, we mean these were women who were lawyers, who were doctors, architects. These were women who were successful by any measure in life, right? And what was interesting about all these women that they interviewed is that they constantly played down and minimized the accomplishments that they had achieved. They would sometimes think that their success had just happened because of luck. Maybe they would think that others had just overestimated them, that they had maybe thought more of them than what they really could bring to the table. And even when they got this success, even once they became successful, they still did not break the cycle for them. It's not like at that point they were like, okay, I've made it, this clearly shows or proves that I can make it. They kept feeling this way, that someone has messed up, and eventually someone's going to figure out that I shouldn't be here where I am. Now, was this a common thing, or is it a common thing? Here's another study I looked at, and this study from 2020 found out that up to 82% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their life. At this point, I like to ask who has felt this way, but since I'm a millennial, I like to express myself through memes, so I will use some memes instead. And I would like you to put your hand up if, do you ever feel like this? You ever feel like when you're an adult, but you feel like a kid faking their way through life? Yeah, pretty much everyone. How about this one? When you accidentally become important at work. You relate to this? Yeah? Yeah, very good. How about this one? Looking in the mirror after working as an engineer for 5 years and calling yourself an imposter. Yeah, you feel this way? Right? This is a common thing. If you feel this way, or have felt this way at any point, you might think, I'm the one with the problem. I'm the one who's wrong here. But this is not the case. This is, as I mentioned, 82% of the population feel this way at some point or another. What about those who don't feel this way, though? Well, let's talk about 3 traits. This is Harvard professor Arthur C. Brooks. And Arthur, through his work, he has had the chance to work a lot with people who he calls strivers. And his work specializes on these people that he calls strivers. What does he mean by strivers? These are people who are successful in their fields, and people who are high-achieving, hardworking, smart, people who are really, really striving to become as good and as successful as they can. Again, we're talking doctors, engineers, musicians, people who are really good at whatever they do, right? But something he noticed is that the more successful these people become, the more insecure they feel about their success. Which is kind of interesting, right? You could think maybe when they're starting they could feel insecure, but no, the better they get at it, the more insecure they feel about it. And they feel more and more that maybe they don't deserve this, that maybe this is not something that they should actually be achieving. But interestingly, there was one group that this did not happen to. There was one group of people who achieved things and were like, hell yeah, I deserve this. So he found out that people who deserved success were usually not convinced about them deserving said success. He also found out that people who were not deserving of this success were usually super convinced that, yes, that's right, this I deserve, this is who I am. So he came up with this, we call it equation. He found out that people who were extremely successful and never felt like an imposter usually exhibited what he and his colleagues called a dark triad personality. Now that sounds dark, huh? Dark triad personality is someone who is above average in these 3 characteristics. First off, narcissism, which means it's all about me, right? I'm the center of the universe. Machiavellianism, difficult word that one, which means I will do whatever it takes, including hurting you if I need to, you in particular, if I need to get my way. Machiavellism. Whoop, went too far. The third one, psychopathy. Most people are familiar with this one. I will hurt you if I need to, and I will feel no remorse about this. So this is not just something that he said, like, yeah, these people probably are like this. No, these were studies that were made. These were the people that he called dark triad personalities, right? Narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. And you might say, okay, but these are probably surely few and far between. But actually, he found out that 7% of people score above average in these 3 characteristics. 7% of people is 1 out of every 14 people. Now, I'm looking at this room, there's probably 50 people here, maybe. And I did see a few hands that did not go up when I showed the memes. So, now I'm not going to throw accusations around, of course, but these people are amongst us. And you might have seen them. You might have interacted with them. Maybe you had a boss at some job who was like a complete asshole, forgive my language. Just like they will do whatever it takes to get the results, regardless of if they're just steamrolling over someone. You might have met someone who broke your heart because they were completely self-centered. They would do whatever it took for them to feel good, but they would hurt you and not feel bad about it. You might have seen some politicians who act in this way. You know, we see them around us. So these people do exist, and these are the people who do not feel ever imposter syndrome. 1 out of every 14 people on average. So that means then that this other equation, where you do well and you are rewarded for it, and therefore you wonder, is this something that I actually deserve? Is this something that I have actually earned? This is what normal people feel. So if you feel this way, you are completely normal. You should not feel bad about yourself. This is the way humans are supposed to be. He identified also something that psychologists call a negativity bias. And a negativity bias is the habit of focusing on the things that we don't have. And this is something that you see a lot. If you think, for example, the people around you, what you think of the things that they do, the things they're capable of, usually you'll think about the positives, right? You'll think this person is really good at X, or that one is really good at Y. But when you're thinking about yourself, you usually focus a lot on what things am I not good. So this means that other people, when they look at you, when you are succeeding at something, they look at you and they see the ways in which you are creating value. However, you yourself look at the ways in which you cannot create value yet. So this can be anything. Someone can say, like, you're a great developer. But inside you're thinking, yeah, but I'm really bad at presenting what I do. It can be anything, right? So it is a human tendency to focus a lot on the ways in which we are coming up short and not thinking about the ways in which we are actually good at whatever it is that we are doing, right? So knowing this then, understanding a little bit where this comes from, let's look into what some of the causes are for this in a little bit more detail. And there's a few different causes. There isn't one single cause that is the one that will make people feel a certain way. But some of these studies that I've mentioned did analyze and make some, not suggestions, but they came to some conclusions as to what some of the reasons for this feeling can be. So for example, the two psychologists, Clance and Imes, their paper identified two family patterns. And we can call this one the family upbringing. One pattern was people who had a sibling who had been identified as the smart one. Is that your situation? Do you have a sibling in your family that was like, oh, he or she is the smart one, right? They're the ones who are going to succeed. We hope you make it, but they're going to be great, right? I see a few hands. So, of course, this gives us the counterpoint here, which would be being identified as being the smart one. Maybe this happened to you. Maybe you were the smart one of your group of siblings. Maybe you were the one that had all the expectations of the family, right? So either one of these, when these people grew up and then joined maybe university or joined the professional workforce, or once they started being around other people that were not their families and started interacting with people the way that normal people interact, this would cause this dichotomy of feeling like, are my parents right or is the world right? So if you have been identified as, let's call it the dumb one in your sibling group, and all of a sudden you are now at your job and people are saying like, oh, good job on this, like you're doing great here. It's like, but my family always told me that I was dumb. Like how come like these people think I'm smart? Someone's wrong, right? Or the other way around. Maybe you were told that you were going to be the next president of the United States. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm doing okay, but I'm maybe not reaching the expectations that have been put upon me. So this is something that will quickly make people start to get that feeling of like, oh no, I'm doing something wrong here. Another one could be belonging to a minority. And minority can be a real thing, can be a perceived thing. And there's no real, I'm not going to spend time defining what kinds of minorities there are, right? There can be many. It can be based on gender. It can be based on ethnicity, your education level, your social class. Humans, we like to classify things into groups, right? We like to put things into groups. So I'm sure that everyone here, if you slice it the right way, everyone here will belong to some sort of minority. Even in if in other aspects of their life, they might be part of the majority. So belonging to one of these minorities makes people many times feel like, oh, I am less than those around me. We have also just generally being overly self-critical. There are some people that go even further than just feeling like, I really should know better than what I actually know. But some people really, really get to the point where they will decide that anything positive that happens to them, anything good that happens, was either because they overworked it, because they did so much more than what would have been expected of them, or maybe just because of luck. Maybe the stars aligned, the planets aligned, and well, it worked out, and okay, great, I managed this time, but next time, for sure, I am going to fail. Any positive feedback someone like this gets will be discounted. So if a colleague or their boss or anyone tells them, like, you're doing great, their partner, you're doing good job on this was really well made, they'll say, yeah, thank you. But inside, they're like, yeah, they're just saying that, but I know it's not true. So careful with being overly self-critical. It can also be a product of the environment. In our case, in IT, we work in a fast-changing industry that has lots of new things all the time. From the time when you studied IT or started working with IT until now, think about the technologies you were using then and the stuff you're doing now. Unless this is your first year in IT, and even if it is, chances are that there's a whole bunch of new things that you're expected to work with now and know and be an expert on that maybe didn't exist 6 months or a year ago. Now we got that with AI, right? Everything's AI. I come to this conference, half the talks are about AI. Are we all of a sudden that good at AI? Because I know I'm looking around, I'm like, am I falling behind? Like, should I know more about this AI? But that's how the environment we are in is, right? If you think of maybe older professions, let's say if someone was a carpenter 100 years ago, maybe in, 40, 50 years, the profession didn't change that much. Maybe a new tool was invented. Well, that's about it, right? Like once you got good at something, you could be good at this thing for decades. But IT, it's not like that. You can be good at learning new things in IT, but you cannot say like, okay, I'm really good at this now, and I never will have to learn anything new because things are constantly changing in this environment that we are in. So this kind of environment then makes people feel insecure, right? And since there's always an expectation that you gotta be an expert on whatever new thing came out 2 weeks ago, this will very quickly breed that feeling of I'm not good enough, of imposter syndrome. So as a successful person, and I'm not going to define exactly what a successful person is, but I'm going to say that basically all of you here are successful people. You work in a good industry, you work with interesting things, you have made it in life, right? But the second you focus on the things that you don't have, so like everything we said, right? Like the technologies you don't know so well, or not being the smart sibling, or being part of a minority, anything that you don't have, you are going to feel like an imposter. And again, this is perfectly normal. If you do not feel like an imposter, chances are, yes, you are a dark triad. And no one wants to be the dark triad, right? No one wants to be known, especially as a dark triad behind their back, right? Well, maybe they do. If they are, they probably don't care anyways. So now that we've discussed a bit where it comes from, what can we do about it, right? How can we beat this imposter syndrome? One way I read about was something called edit your story. And I couldn't really fully understand what this edit your story meant. But basically, I narrowed it down to tell yourself that it is normal to find difficult situations difficult. When you're facing something complex, a complex problem, something that is complicated in life, and you're feeling like, I don't know if I'll be able to fix this, I don't know if I'll be able to solve this, to come up with a solution, it's good to take a second and step back and say, it's okay, this thing is complicated, but I'll figure it out. And if not, I'll get help to figure it out, but we will solve this. At some point in your life, each and every one of you has had to learn something. We've had to learn how to walk. We learned how to read, how to write. We've learned math. We've learned whatever things we work with now. Maybe you know how to play an instrument. So it's good to stop and remind yourself of this. Remind yourself of your past experiences and how something that was difficult at first eventually got easier as time went on and you kept on practicing and you kept getting better at it. So when you face something new, something challenging, don't break down right away and say like, I suck at this, I can't do this, I'm no good. Remember, difficult things are difficult, but you'll figure it out. You'll get better at it. It's also good to aim for good enough. It is impossible to do something perfectly. Maybe if you had infinite time, you might be able to do one thing perfectly, but none of us have infinite time. So it's okay to say, this is good enough. If you're working on a project, if you're trying to learn something, remind yourself you don't have to become the #1 expert in the world at this one particular thing. It's okay to do something to a point where it is good enough, it works, it serves its purpose. Don't aim for perfection, because the only thing that's going to happen is that you're going to get depressed, you're going to get frustrated. It's not going to work, right? So whatever gifts you have, being your knowledge, your resources, your time, do the best you can with them, and then realize that it's good enough. Remember also that we see the world from the inside out. And this goes back to that negativity bias that I was talking about earlier. Again, if you look around and you see others, maybe other people you work with, it's easy to see them as confident, successful, right? I know there's many people like that at my work that I look at and I'm like, man, I wish I was like them, right? They are smart, they have a good presence, they're confident, hell, they look good. You know, I'm thinking like, I wish I was more like this person. But remember that negativity bias makes it so that you are much more aware of their good things and much more aware of your own bad things. So remember that it is you mostly who is aware of your feelings and not necessarily those around you. So when you're sitting in that meeting room and you're thinking, all these people clearly realize that I'm an idiot and I shouldn't be here, chances are they don't. I was going to make a joke that there is a small chance, but no, I won't make that joke, because in reality, it's not going to be like that. Because you yourself, think of all the meetings you might have been in your work, and think of how many of those you sat there thinking like, wow, that specific person is an idiot. It doesn't happen, right? You tend to look at the best in others, and other people do the same towards you. Another thing you can do is to use imposter syndrome to your advantage. Lean into it without giving into it. So don't try to pretend it doesn't exist. Don't try to pretend that, like, you know, it's there, but if I ignore it, it will go away. The thing is real, and the thing will be inside your head. But instead of that, of ignoring it, actually see how can I use this to my advantage? What can I do to make this work for me instead of me suffering at its hands, right? So instead of focusing too much on your weaknesses, use them as an opportunity for growth. Don't ignore them. We all have weaknesses. No one is perfect. But realize what those weaknesses are, and then come up with a plan to how can I use this for growth. One way I found out is if you are especially suffering from this, you could document your strengths and weaknesses. You could keep a file on your computer or maybe on a notebook on your desk. You can put 2 columns, one that says strengths, one that says areas of growth, right? And whenever you work on something, whenever you meet with someone, whatever you do in your day-to-day life, when you come across something that is a strength, something that you're good at, or something that maybe you don't think you're good at, but someone told you you're actually really good at this, write it down on the strengths column. And when you find something that is challenging, that you're maybe not really good at just yet, put it in the areas of growth. And then go back and review this. Add to it every time you can, and review it regularly and use it for reassurance and improvement. So instead of just wallowing in the feeling of, oh, I'm no good, look at this list, work on it, and then maybe go back after a couple of months and look at the things that you had originally written and find out that, like, wow, I'm much better now at this one thing than I was 2-3 months ago. And then you're actually documenting this progress. You're documenting your growth, and this helps to feel less of this imposter syndrome. You should also remember that feelings don't equal facts. And this is something that seems logical, of course, but it's something that we quickly forget as humans. That sometimes because I feel a certain way This has to be the reality of the matter, but this is not the case. Look at this quote. "The exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler." Who do you think said this? Good guess, but not Steinbeck. It was Albert Einstein. Now, would you say that Albert Einstein was a loser? Would you say that he was an imposter? I don't think anyone would, right? But he himself felt like an imposter. He felt that like we're gonna find out eventually that E actually does not equal MC squared. But you know what? This wasn't the case. He felt this way, but it wasn't a fact. So just because you feel like an imposter does not mean that you are indeed an imposter. Something else that could help is talking about the issue. Once again, we've talked about this a few times already, but we tend to see others as knowledgeable, right? As reassured. You probably have someone at your work that is really, really good at this one thing that you are trying to get good at. But I bet you if you go talk to that person and just ask him, like, how do you feel about, not attacking them, right? But like, do you ever feel imposter syndrome? I bet you that they will either say yes, or they are a dark triad. So either way, you're gonna come out with some valuable information there, right? Don't be scared to ask others. No one's gonna look at you and go like, aha, I knew you had imposter syndrome. Ugh. Everyone feels it, it's completely normal, everyone does it. It's okay to talk about it. If anything, it's probably really good to actually talk about it, because then those other people might also be feeling that way and not know how to communicate or who to talk to about it. So why not just start the conversation? No one knows everything. Ask questions. This is something that, especially when I was starting in the industry, I would be really like scared of, right? Like asking questions, because you don't want people to think that you don't know, right? But as these 17 years I mentioned have gone by, I've realized that like it doesn't matter. It will be much better if I actually ask a question and figure something out, that if I try to like pretend like I know and then I don't know and then I leave that meeting and now I'm like, oh man, like what am I supposed to do now, right? Ask questions, it's okay. So I say you should talk about it. But these are not just empty words. I'd say let's actually talk. Let's discuss this. So I found this quiz online that we could use. We could discuss if we are even good enough to have imposter syndrome. I was hoping that would get a bigger laugh. But we are not going to do this quiz. This, of course, is a joke. But I would like to ask those of you in the audience, which situations or circumstances make you feel imposter syndrome? And of course, it's not fun to be the one starting this, so I'll start. I'll say which things I feel insecure about. There's a few, actually, so how much time you got? Now, I'll mention a few. I think one that is always in the back of my head, I didn't go to college. I didn't go to university. I got a vocational title in electronics. And then I went and started working on some stuff. But I always had an interest in IT, so I learned a lot of it on my own. I learned a lot of programming on my own, how computers worked and so on. Eventually, someone made the mistake of hiring me for an IT job, so that was my introduction into the actual industry. And now, as I said, 17 years have passed, and I'm still here, right? And at my work, I might be looked at as an expert in some things, but deep down inside, I'm like, yeah, but these people know. These people know that I don't really know shit, right? I didn't go to school. And we are in an industry where a very, very large percentage of the people have university titles, sometimes multiple university titles. And here comes Eugene, who finished high school, yay. And now he's the guy who's going to have to tell you how to do your work. So that is something that I struggle with, not every day, but when the thought comes there, I have to remind myself, like, it's okay. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, but try to get better. I think something else that I struggle with, how many of you are immigrants in the country you live in? Meaning you don't live in the country where you were born. All right, I see some hands. And of those, the country you live in now, is it the same language that the country you were born in? Put up your hand if not. So pretty much, actually, I see more hands now even. So, so you know that feeling. My mother tongue is Spanish. I've also spoken English since birth, basically. But I live in Norway now. My wife is Norwegian. And I've been there for some years. And I've learned the language enough to get by. But I'm nowhere near at the point where I'm super relaxed and super confident about my skills, right? So when I'm going into, let's say, a meeting with a client or a meeting with colleagues and so on, and everyone else is Norwegian, I don't want to be the guy who's like, can we do this in English? Because I want to integrate, and I don't want them to feel like they have to put the brake on because Mr. Idiot's in the room, right? So I'll sit there, and depending on the subject, I might pick up as much as 90%. I might pick up as little as 20%. But I'm sitting there, and every time I'm sitting there thinking, like, how did anyone give me a job in here when I don't even understand, not even the subject we're discussing, but even the words that we're using to discuss said subject, right? So this is something that I struggle with regularly. The only way to get better is to continue practicing, continue making mistakes. Hopefully you'll get there eventually. But yeah, this is always something that is challenging for me, right? So those are a couple of things that I struggle with. But I would love to invite you to just raise your hand and tell me your story. I'd love to hear this. I actually brought a chair, and I still have 20 minutes left and not a lot more material. So if no one will talk, we're just going to sit here and stare at each other. So please put your hand up and just let me know what are you insecure about? What do you feel imposter syndrome about? We got a microphone, so there's a hand up here in the front. If we could start with you, and if we could get your name, just wait for the mic. Right here, sorry.
Hello.
Yeah?
My name is Christina.
Okay.
And I have recently felt it about a year ago when my two colleagues sitting next to me joined our team because they came in with knowledge that I didn't have. And even though I knew a lot about what we were doing at the company I work at, then when they come with new ideas, then I'm like, oh shit, I don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you combat it, or are you able to combat it?
Well, of course, learning more about my colleagues as people, of course, helps that a lot. But also just seeing it more as an opportunity to learn and what can we improve, what can I learn and get better at.
Yeah.
But it was really hard in the very start because you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. I like to ask your colleagues, do you feel that she's no good at what she does? And if you do, then maybe don't answer, but...
She's one of the best developers I have worked with.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll clap for that. Very nice.
Because a year ago, I joined the company and I was like, oh shit, I don't know shit.
Love it.
And now I'm here, so I learned something. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how you both felt that way about yourselves when dealing with each other? Right? You were both like, oh shit, like he or she is real smart. I'm the dumb one here, right?
Yeah, but right now we have a really good ping pong going. If I'm like, I don't know this, what is this? And she's like, oh my God, it's this? And I'm like, okay.
Very nice. Thank you very much for sharing. More hands. Up here in the front, please. If we could get your name.
Hello, thank you for the talk.
Yes.
Super interesting. And sometimes I feel an impostor when at some conference they accept my talk submissions. And I'm here like, oh, are they really interested in what I have to say about this topic? And every time it feels strange to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's...
I hear you. I mean, that's how I feel right now. Again, not a psychologist, but someone thought I could talk about this, so I'm doing a talk about quantum computing next month. I know nothing about quantum computing. Again, like, why they pick me? But so when you feel this way, do you do anything specific to overcome this feeling?
Not yet. No. I'm just
Show
feeling
up,
it.
do the talk. Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much. More hands. Who else wants to share? I did see a lot of hands when I asked who felt imposter syndrome, so I know you got him. All right, we got one over there. Yeah, thank you.
So sometimes when I'm at a conference like
Yeah.
here, well, some guy on stage says, "Oh, this and this technology, you're all using it. You're all using this as a best practice," and I've never even heard of it. that doesn't feel very good.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah. I'm even finding new fears that I didn't even know I had. So
Exactly. I thought we were doing kind of well, and apparently not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it's true. And again, it's part of the environment we're in, right? There's so many different technologies that we work with all the time that it's impossible to know all these. But yeah, sometimes you hear about something and it's like, oh, am I the only person in the planet who doesn't know about this thing? So yeah, yeah, very true. Who else would like to share? And these Scandinavian audiences are difficult. There's a hand back there. If we could get that, we can, yeah, there we go.
Maybe a little bit off topic or off. So I'm in the role. So I'm a CTO for a big Nordic professional or global professional services firm, Nordic CTO of that, as well as leading a fairly large, highly technical team.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I haven't written a line of code in 15 years.
Yep.
And yet I'm expected to make the direction or advise on the direction and where to go on a strategic level, as well as advise my team. I almost every day feel like an imposter.
So what do you do to try to fight that feeling?
I try to convince myself that if no one else has like an opinion on the matter, then at least my calculated guess is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, no, that's good
I'm not a
advice.
psychologist either, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, we're all just trying our best, right? But that is true, and again, it goes back to the whole, there's so many different moving parts in this industry we're in. And I think for a situation like that, I'm in a similar situation. I just recently started a job as a CTO as well. I still try to write some code from time to time, but there's always that feeling of like, there are people who have an expectation that I know stuff, and maybe I don't know the stuff, right? And I think in those cases, it's just good to make everyone feel like it's an open environment where everyone can share what they know, what they don't know, and we all just try to help each other. There's not that like hierarchy of like, no, I know best, so we will only do what I say. No, let's try to figure out something together, right?
yeah, exactly. It's like inclusion of all the knowledge in the teams. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. We still got time. Who else wants to share? Jody, please, here in the front. Right here in the first row.
So you're talking about living in a country as an immigrant. So I'm Australian and I moved to Germany almost 8 years ago. And Anglophones, we have this really weird idea of how you learn languages. So I was like, yeah, a year and a half in, I'll be speaking German. So I just passed my B1 German test earlier this year so I can go for my citizenship. And I'm so embarrassed at the idea that I will call myself German with my level of German. In fact, I'm quite terrified about the appointment to go get the citizenship, that I won't understand what they're saying. So I think what I do is I'm like, I did pass with a good, which was not the worst mark. So there must be people who are worse at German who got their citizenship. So it should be okay. But I have this vision of them like yelling at me in angry German when I go into the appointment and saying no. Nein!
Very good. There's jokes to be made there, but I will be the better person. But thank you. I know that feeling. I know that feeling for sure. So thank you for sharing. Let's see. Did I see any other hands? Yes. If we can get Arthur in the back over there, please.
So this one's going to be really weird and awkward because I didn't know that Jody was in the room. But so I give talks on psychology and on, topics like this at developer conferences. I've also been a developer for 20 years, never been a psychologist, never been a therapist, don't have a degree in it. So it's I always feel imposter syndrome meeting people like Jody who have degrees in psychology, because it's like, oh God, what am I getting wrong? Am I explaining this right? This extreme, am I overgeneralizing? So it's and I've been speaking for like almost 10 years. So it can happen to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. When Jody said she was coming to the talk, I was like, oh, I'd rather you didn't. I appreciate the support, but now I feel extra impostery about this whole thing. Thank you. Thank you very much, Arthur. Good. Did we have anyone else wanted to share? Yeah, there's one more over here. Slowly but surely, they're coming.
Hi. I think maybe I'm in a privileged position for knowing where my imposter syndrome started, I think. So I was a child that had it fairly easy in like the first grades of school compared to the other people in my class. And I got praise for it, obviously, from my family. I'm sure they would have praised me either way, but I think I was excelling in the first few grades.
We found the smart sibling. Go on.
I'm an only child, so I've got even more praise.
You can be both.
And then the higher the grades got, the more work I had to put into school, obviously. It gets harder and harder. University was also hard. And the less, when I started not having A's in every single subject, I felt very bad. And I still carry this in my work now, where I look at my academic journey, and I was never the best in university. There were so many people so much better than me with better grades, better work, like theses and all of that. And I still feel that, and still feel like why am I here when I've achieved less than my peers? And I feel that every day, basically.
Yeah. And yet, you finished university and I didn't even start. So, you already got that on me. So you're not the worst person in the room. Continues to be me. Anyone else? Thank you very much for sharing. Anyone else would like to share? One more over here, please.
Hi. I have struggled with it for several years now too, and I kind of have it from two sources, where it's like, I'm the first one in my family to complete university, so there's no pressure from my family, but I have this expectation, well, I'm like, I have to be smart, right? I have to be somewhat smart, but I don't feel smart, so why am I here?
Right.
And then I have this feeling every time I join like a new team for a new project or whatever, where even though if I know the people, I'm kind of like, well, they're the good ones, like they're the perfect ones, like they know everything, they really have their stuff together. And I'm kind of like, well, here comes this dumbass, like they're gonna be tired of me. And even though I know I'm not expected to join the team and start running and complete 5 tickets on the first day, like I still have this, well, I'm just a dumbass that joins the team now, and they're gonna be tired of me. And I don't have a solution for it either, but I've learned to just kind of, like, again, as you said, accept that it's there and not ignore it, but just like, okay, this is how I feel right now, and that's okay. And it's gone fine all the other time, so of course it's gonna go fine this time too.
Right.
But it's definitely there, and yeah, just kind of have to deal with it sometimes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, definitely share that sentiment. Good. How are we for time? Yeah. Unless someone really wants to share their next, thank you. Unless someone really wants to share a story, we can move on. No, okay. So, first of all, thank you all for sharing your different stories. Once again, right, the negativity bias. I come here and I'm looking at this room of fine people, and I'm thinking like, you all are professionals at what you do. You're good at what you're doing, and here comes this Mr. Nobody to try to tell you something, right? But I think it's really good to see that a lot of these fears that any one of us has is something that many of us share. And I'm sure that many of you heard any of the different stories that were shared, and you might have been thinking like, oh yeah, I feel the exact same way, or I identify with that as well, right? So I hope this helps you to see that it's okay. It's okay to feel like an imposter. It's okay to have that bit of insecurity. It is a completely normal, natural thing. So a lot of times people tell you that you should think big, right? Whenever you're starting a project, like, let's think big. But I'm going to tell you today that you should think small. And you probably remember this quote from earlier in the talk. This was Steinbeck. He said, once again, I am not a writer. I've been fooling myself and other people. I wish I were. This success will ruin me as sure as hell. It probably won't last, right? But you might have noticed that I ended on a comma there because this is not the end of what he said. He actually said, and that will be all right. I'll try to go on with work now. Just a stint every day does it. So even though Steinbeck was feeling like he was a failure and that this book was going to crash and burn in front of him and it was going to blow up in his face, he figured, I'll just do whatever I can today. I'm not going to finish this book today. I'm not going to turn it into a masterpiece today, but today I'm going to do a little bit. And it's the same thing when you are working on your column of things or areas of growth or things that you could still get better at. Don't come in feeling like, okay, today I got to get super good at this one thing. Just do a little bit. Learn one little thing. Make it 1% better than it was when the day started. So I'm not saying that after listening to this talk, you're going to go home and never feel this way again. I don't think you can become a dark triad if you are in one from birth. So you're always going to have that there, but it is beatable. You can beat it. It is something you can live with. You can use it to your advantage, and you should embrace it, right? You are this trickster goddess. You are the imposter child for deception. Think of how many people you've already fooled in your life. Keep doing it, At least you're good at that. If nothing else, you're good at fooling people. So that's me. This is my website. If you want to get the slides, you can find them there. I think in there I have some information as to how to get in touch with me if you completely disagree with what I said and you want to yell at me. There might be a Blue Sky link in there, I think. I got to check. But yeah, this is me. Thank you very much for coming to my talk today.